PK52, the Saturday morning meeting. Let me tell you something. The thon is on. So I go back so far with Toyota, and I hate to admit this, but started selling Toyotas in the 1980s. And the Toyotathon started like this. I know a lot of you don't know this, but the major manufacturers in America were the domestic manufacturers back in the late 80s and the early 1990s. And what they would do is they would basically shut down the entire um, big overview of Ford and GM and Chrysler. They would shut down for almost the entire month of December and walk away because it just wasn't a good time to sell cars. It was the end of the year, and the people that bought cars back then at the end of the year, because their accountant says you need to buy a car to protect some of your tax liabilities. And so that was kind of the big deal, but the manufacturers kind of went away. Well, Toyota was a very small player back then, not a whole lot of market share in the United States. And some genius, and I don't know who it was, I wish I did, but some genius at Toyota goes, you know what? While nobody else is advertising in the month of December to sell cars, the advertising is going to be less expensive in December than any other time in the whole year. And so we'll go out and buy big blocks of advertising and we'll push a deal, and let's call it Toyotathon. So the guy that you could go look at some vintage Toyotathon videos, they're pretty cool. But the guy's name was Squire, and he would come out and there'd be balloons falling down and collect the Toyotathon is on. And they'd walk over to each individual car, maybe a Corolla, maybe a Celica, and they'd show all these cars and they show the pricing and come in, enjoy the Toyotathon. It was so crazy that this was such a big boom to the volume of Toyota sales that after a few years, the domestic manufacturers changed their entire policy about December, and they started doing stuff. Lexus does December to Remember, and it's same dovetail. Now all the manufacturers play hard in the month of December. We're in a different time now with Toyota. Now the domestic manufacturers have a lot of cars. They do. And it's not because they just decided to pump up the manufacturing plants and build more cars than ever before. They're building the same amount of cars, but their turn rate is starting to get high. Just the other day, I was reading an article that the 3/4 ton Ram truck is sitting on dealerships lots for up to 400 days. So 400 days in stock before that truck gets sold. We've got vehicles at Toyota right now. For example, the high-end Highlanders are selling in single days, like 5 to 7 days, or they're sold before they ever get to the dealership, and the customer's already given a deposit, and as soon as the car comes in, they take delivery. So a lot of difference between 400 days in stock and 7 days in stock, and that's led to a big issue with Toyota inventory being on the ground and available for sale because everything is sold. If it's a real high energy unit, it's already sold before it ever gets to the dealership. So with that being said, got to use your brain because you got to do Toyotathon a little different this year. So I'm already taking orders for 4Runner. For a new 4Runner, you want a mud bath 4Runner? I'm taking orders because there's not going to be, again, I've said this and everybody's giving me a hard time about it. I think that is a horrible color. I think it's the worst color we've ever come up with, but I'll promise you it'll be the number one seller in the 4Runner as far as color ever. I mean, people are going to love that thing. I'm not one of them, but then again, nobody's asking me, right? I'm taking deposits on that. I'm taking deposits on Trail Hunters. The Trail Hunter Edition 4Runner's coming out. I'm gonna use my Toyotathon this year to gather as many people as possible and get those people into my downline for 2025 so I have units sold going into January, February, March, April, May, June, July, into that year, all the way into the summer selling months. So with the advertising being spent for Toyotathon, and the reduction amount of actual ground units available for sale because of our turn rate, then I've got to be smart enough to put that customer in my queue. So as soon as that vehicle comes in, they come take delivery. And I'm not, everybody wants to get upset about stuff. I got to be honest with you. If everything that Toyota is sending me is already pre-sold and the only thing I have in my inventory are used and certified cars, I'm okay with that because if my turn rate's that fast, I'm earning more cars than any other dealership out there. My earn rate is through the roof. I'm number one earn rate. I'm getting more cars. They just happen to be sold before they ever get to the dealership. Remember, the domestic manufacturers are now not making passenger cars. I mean, Chevrolet walked away from the passenger car business. Ford's walked away from the passenger car business. So not everybody wants to try to jump up into an SUV. Not everybody wants an SUV. Our Camry hybrid, our Corolla hybrid, those things are getting phenomenal gas mileage. And it doesn't matter whether gas is $1 a gallon or $5 a gallon. Gas is always going to cost money, and a vehicle that gets up to 50,000 miles per gallon is always going to keep expendable income in your wallet. So there's a lot to sell, even though there's not anything to show. Remember, if I use green screen and I shoot video, I can show you on-road, off-road footage. I can show you mileage footage. I can show you stats. So the use of green screen makes any vehicle that Toyota has to offer available right behind me right now. Sienna minivan, Platinums, can't get them. They're all pre-sold, but I can do a whole walk around on a Platinum behind me. So start using technology along with Toyotathon to build your 2025. PK52, the Saturday morning meeting.